What does the ideal version of yourself look like? What do you value? And what habits keep you resilient to the pressures of your environment? When we can answer some of these questions, we are better able to develop into the person we want to be, reach the life we're aiming for, stay on track despite our impulses and desires trying to derail us, and increase the general well-being of our lives. Stoicism has some surprisingly effective habits that we can use every day to help us on this path to a fulfilling and happy life, or what the Stoics called eudaimonia. And today we're going to have a look at 8 things the Stoics specifically don't do, and how we can avoid these same pitfalls to help develop a strong, resilient mindset. Welcome to Orion Philosophy, where we explore, discuss and dissect areas of practical philosophy for use in everyday life. To kick us off, we have the avoidance of excessive pleasure. One of the fundamental virtues that form the foundation of Stoic belief is the virtue of temperance, the ability to exercise self-control or discipline. This principle encourages us to maintain a sense of balance in our lives, helping us to navigate the complexities of our emotions and the world around us without giving in to desires and impulses, and by extension, being dragged off the path that we want to be on, or losing our composure. The ancient Stoics advocated the avoidance of excessive pleasure because they saw it as one of the major sources of emotional turmoil and a hindrance to our ability to act with reason and make wise decisions. When we are ruled by our desire for pleasure, our actions become dictated by external circumstances rather than our own thoughtful choice. This means that we can be manipulated by anything going on around us, for better or for worse. Excessive pleasure can lead to a loss of our control, promoting destructive and impulsive behavior that we know we shouldn't do. It can undermine long-term thinking in favor of short-term gratification, pushing us further away from a life of virtue and wisdom. This unbalanced pursuit of pleasure can ultimately widen the gap between who we are and the person we aspire to be. When our emotions and actions are dictated by desire, there is a very real risk that our behaviors will conflict with our own principles and values. This can lead to a gradual erosion of our character over time, as we prioritize temporary satisfaction over the long-term cultivation of virtue. However, when we deliberately avoid excessive pleasure and embrace the virtue of temperance, we can develop the ability to consistently decide our actions and align ourselves with our values. This practice of self-control allows us to gradually cultivate an inner calm and stability, which in turn serves as a foundation for personal growth. In this way, the Stoic practice of temperance enables us to nurture a sense of balance in our lives, helping us to navigate our emotions without allowing them to control us and pass through hardship while maintaining our composure. Next, we have the avoidance of rising to anger. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him." In a similar way to pleasure, when anger is allowed to hijack our behavior and thoughts, we hand control of our actions over to external events happening in the world around us, or to people around us whose actions we disagree with. As Epictetus put it, we allow others to become our master. Imagine rising to anger every time a person was rude, ungrateful, ignorant, impatient, selfish, or disloyal. This anger will express itself in your behavior, and when your behavior is controlled by something other than you, there is a risk that it will not align with the person you want to be. So in the same way that the pleasure seeker's behaviors are pushed and pulled by desire, the angry person is pushed and pulled by forces equally outside their control. Stoicism offers a path to avoid this trap by fostering emotional mastery and mindful reactions in response to challenging situations. In order for us to adopt a Stoic approach to anger, we can consider the following steps. Recognizing the triggers of anger. Identify the situations and people that tend to provoke anger in yourself. Become aware of these triggers. And not only can you prepare yourself to respond more mindfully when they arise, you'll be better able to catch them in the moment when you know what they are. Pause and reflect. When we start to feel anger bubbling up, we can take a moment to pause and reflect on the situation, reminding ourselves that our reaction is within our control, even if external circumstances are not. Reevaluating our judgments. Often our anger is fueled by the judgments we make about a situation, rather than the situation itself. By re-evaluating these judgments from a Stoic perspective, we can avoid giving in to emotional impulse, and instead respond with wisdom and restraint. Practice empathy. This can be essentially trying to see the situation from another person's perspective. By practicing empathy, we can better understand their actions and motivations, which can help diffuse our anger and lead to a more compassionate response or reaction. Choose a measured response. Rather than reacting impulsively out of anger, make a conscious and deliberate choice on how to behave and address the situation. And this measured response means that we can address the situation at hand in alignment with our values and the person we want to be. When we avoid descending into anger, we keep our hold on our actions, we maintain our peace of mind, and we make wiser decisions in line with our own personal values. By following the Stoic path, we can develop emotional mastery, foster stronger relationships, and become more resilient in the face of life's challenges. On anger, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Keep in mind that it isn't the one who has it in for you and takes a swipe that harms you, but rather the harm comes from your own belief about the abuse. So when someone arouses your anger, know that it's really your own opinion fueling it. Instead, make it your first response not to be carried away by such impressions, for with time and distance, self-mastery is more easily achieved." Of course, we should probably add the caveat that this doesn't cover everything that another person can do to you, but I believe Epictetus was trying to look at day-to-day occurrences rather than forms of serious abuse. Next, we're going to take a look at envy, the green snake of our emotions that compares who we are and what we have to other people and what they have. Envy takes these comparisons, makes us feel like we have less, like others have more, and creates a feeling of wanting, and even bitterness or contempt. When we experience a strong feeling like envy, it can dominate our thoughts, override our ability to reason effectively, and erode our well-being. This feeling of envy often needs two things in order to survive: a focus on other people's accomplishments or belongings, and feeling inadequate or unsatisfied with our own lives. The more we do one or both of these, the stronger the feeling will get. However, instead of giving in to the destructive effects of envy, ancient Stoicism offers us an alternative strategy that encourages us to develop self-contentment and even applaud and celebrate the accomplishments of others. A core belief of the Stoics, which we cover over and over again, is to accept the areas of life that are outside our control and to concentrate on the things we can control, such as our own thoughts, deeds, and emotions. When we apply this theory to the experience of envy, we can start to see that our negative emotions have more to do with ourselves than with the situations that seem to have triggered them. In this case, the difference between our lives and the lives of other people. Rather than racing after money, possessions, or social status, Stoic thinkers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius believe that our ultimate objective should be to improve our character and live in accordance with our beliefs and values. Through the development of character, we can shift our attention from jealousy to personal development and self-improvement by concentrating on the cultivation of inner virtues. The more we grow and develop into the person we want to be, the more secure we become in ourselves, and the better able we are to congratulate others for their accomplishments, rather than looking at them with envy. As we shift into confidence about who we are, the achievements of others become less threatening to us. So let's have a look at these 5 Stoic practices that can help us with envy. Recognizing the fleeting nature of external success. The Stoics understood that material wealth, fame, and power are both transient and subject to the whims of fortune. This acknowledgement of the impermanent nature of things can loosen their hold on our emotions and allow us to find greater fulfillment in the pursuit of wisdom and virtue. Practicing gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful antidote to envy, and by regularly reflecting on the blessings and opportunities we have in our own lives, we can cultivate a sense of contentment and appreciation for our own circumstances. This shift in perspective can help neutralize feelings of envy and foster a more positive outlook. Focusing on self-improvement. Instead of comparing ourselves to others, we can channel our energy into becoming the best version of ourselves. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of personal growth and self-mastery, encouraging us to strive for excellence in our own thoughts, actions, and relationships. Embracing the success of others. Rather than feeling threatened or diminished by the accomplishments of others, we can encourage ourselves to celebrate their success and learn from their example. By adopting an attitude of goodwill and support, we can transform envy into inspiration, fostering a more harmonious and collaborative mindset. Reflect on the potential downsides of success. It's also important to remember that the people we envy are likely facing challenges and difficulties that we are not aware of. Success often comes with its own set of struggles, and by considering the potential drawbacks, we can gain a more balanced perspective on the lives of others that we envy, without looking at them through rose-tinted glasses. Next we have blame. And Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you can, correct the person who is responsible. If you cannot, repair the damage. If you can do neither, why blame others? It is pointless." There are nuggets of Stoic philosophy that offer us a unique perspective on the concept of blame, urging us to focus on our own thoughts and actions, rather than seeking to look for the failed responsibility in others. A lot of this comes back to the idea that we only have real control over our thoughts and actions, and that blame prevents us from using our time and energy to move forward and improve the situation. Blame even keeps us stuck in the past, focusing on the things outside the reach of our control. The Stoics believe that we should fundamentally concentrate on our own thoughts and actions, rather than those of others. By shifting our attention away from blame and the actions of other people, and towards our own actions, we can more effectively address the situation at hand, regardless of whether it was caused by someone else. In this way, we can actively work towards a resolution, rather than getting caught up in the cycle of blame and wasting our time. Here are several ways we can look at blame in a different way. Acknowledging the good intentions of others. Stoic philosophy also teaches that most people are generally well-intentioned. We're all doing the best with what they have, and the resources we have. And when someone makes a mistake or behaves in a destructive way, it is often due to their lack of understanding or inability to determine right from wrong, rather than malicious intent. Recognizing this can help us approach others with empathy and compassion, seeking to understand their perspective, rather than jumping to blaming them without any context. Cultivating emotional resilience. Blaming others can be an easy way to deflect responsibility and avoid confronting our own shortcomings. However, this approach can undermine our own emotional resilience as we become more defensive and reactive to the actions of others, and therefore less capable of managing our own emotions. Stoicism encourages us to accept any given situation for what it is and move forward. In this case, it could be accepting that we may have been part of the problem and not getting defensive when people blame us, and similarly, not pointing fingers at other people when we feel we're being attacked. Encourage growth and learning. When we focus on blame, we may inadvertently be closing ourselves off to valuable learning opportunities. If we take the time to examine what we can do to improve a situation, we can grow and evolve both as individuals and as society. In this way, we can transform challenges into opportunities. On this subject, Marcus Aurelius wrote the following: "When you wake in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine." So when stuff inevitably hits the fan, resist the urge to point fingers and assign blame. Instead, embrace the Stoic perspective of focusing on what you can do to improve the situation and maintain your peace of mind. In doing so, you'll not only be better equipped to navigate life's challenges, but you'll also have a better chance of cultivating stronger and more supportive relationships with those around you. At 5, we have allowing excessive fear. It's important to see fear as a natural emotion that we all experience, and one that kept our ancestors alive and safe in the wild, and that keeps us safe in our more modern world. Fear is a survival mechanism, yet Stoic philosophy teaches us that excessive fear can be detrimental to our well-being. Stoicism contains principles that help us learn to manage our fears more effectively, and as an alternative, embrace courage and rationality. The Stoics believed that a lot of our fear, just like many other emotions, comes from our judgments and beliefs about events, rather than the event itself. In many cases, these judgments are based on irrational assumptions or misconceptions, leading us to experience unnecessary and avoidable anxiety and stress. When we examine the thoughts that give rise to our fears, we can challenge them, We can uproot the ones that are holding us back and deliberately plant beliefs that give us a more balanced and rational perspective. And as we've covered, and a repeating theme in Stoic philosophy, is the idea that we should focus on the things within our control while accepting those that are beyond our control. And often we'll find that our fears are rooted in our perception of external events that we can neither control nor predict. By recognizing that we only have control over our thoughts, actions, and responses, we can learn to accept the world around us as it is, live more peacefully in uncertainty, and become more comfortable in hardship. We can also embrace the future as it happens, rather than have the future be a source of anxiety. Here are 3 behaviors that we can use to help. Embracing courage and wisdom. The ancient Stoics viewed both courage and wisdom as core virtues in the pursuit of a good and happy life. Virtues that can help us navigate hardship and adversity with a greater resilience and peace of mind. When we develop these qualities in ourselves, we are better able to confront our fears head on. With wisdom, we can see them for what they are. We can make more informed decisions. And with courage, we can take calculated risks in the pursuit of our goals. With wisdom, we can see our fears objectively. We can look at the causes of those fears and decide whether they are reasonable or they need to be replaced with something more realistic. And with courage, we can face our fears, we can go into situations that cause us fear, and in many cases, we can learn that the causes of those fears are nothing really to be scared about. Using negative visualization. Stoic thinkers frequently engage in the practice of negative visualization, which involves mentally rehearsing impending difficulties or hardships in order to better prepare for them. If we can visualize the worst possible outcomes and work on dealing with the emotion that could come from that outcome, we can work to lessen the hold that fear has over us. And finally, we have using fear as an opportunity for growth. The Stoics saw adversity and struggle as a fundamental component of human existence, one that offers opportunity for growth, development of good character, and the testing of our resolve. Through the understanding that life will always unfold as it does, rather than how we want it to unfold, and accepting challenges and hardship as a natural part of life, we can learn to master our fear of uncertainty and replace it with understanding and acceptance. Another behavior that the Stoics viewed as futile and destructive was complaining. To them, complaining is an indication that we're dissatisfied with the circumstances around us, and an indication of our inability to accept the current state of the world. In a world where venting frustrations and complaining seem to be the norm, it might seem unusual to encounter someone who practices the deliberate habit of not complaining about anything. However, Stoics aim to live a life of tranquility, virtue, and wisdom, and as a result they understand that complaining only serves to disturb the peace of mind that they strive to maintain. Not only does complaint undermine our peace of mind, it also keeps us stuck in the problem, rather than working towards improving the situation and a solution. The Stoic philosopher and emperor of Rome, Marcus Aurelius, once wrote, "Don't be overheard complaining, not even to yourself." The Stoics believed in the importance of understanding and accepting the natural order of the world, or what they called the logos. This cosmic order governs the universe, and everything that occurs is a result of its working. In our more modern world, this can also be thought of as the laws of nature. By recognizing that events unfold according to the laws of nature, Stoics can cultivate an attitude of acceptance and serenity, even in the face of adversity. Complaining, on the other hand, goes against this acceptance, and it implies a resistance to the natural course of events. And an idea that we've already touched on, the repetition here is intentional, is the notion that we should focus on what is within our control and accept what is not within our control. When we complain, we often fixate on external circumstances that we have no control over. However, Stoics emphasize personal responsibility and encourage us to take control over our thoughts, actions, and reactions. Instead of complaining about a situation, they believe that we should focus on how we can better respond to it in a constructive and virtuous manner. The Stoics also place a great importance on the practice of gratitude, which involves reflecting on the positive areas of our lives and appreciating the present moment. Gratitude can act as an antidote to complaint, and by developing it, we can foster a sense of contentment and satisfaction, which in turn discourages our inclination to complain. In addition to this, the practice of gratitude helps us recognize that even in difficult situations, there are often things around us for which we can be thankful. Next up, we have excessive materialism. Often the discussion around materialism is split into whether money and possessions are good or bad. To the Stoics, virtue was the only good, and the lack of virtue is the only evil. Everything else is indifferent. And this includes wealth. The goodness and badness of wealth and materialism comes from how it's used. If we sacrifice our virtue and values to get it, then it has been a catalyst for bad. But if we use what we have to help others, it can be a catalyst for good. But money, cars, houses, and everything of that nature is in itself simply neutral. However, the Stoics did believe that material possessions are not a source of true and resilient happiness. They were seen as sources of transient happiness, with ups and downs. So they made a deliberate effort not to be overly attached to material things. The ancient Stoic Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little that is poor, but the man who hankers after more." In today's consumer-driven society, the pursuit of material wealth and possessions often takes center stage, leaving many people feeling perpetually unsatisfied and craving more. They become stuck on the treadmill, always chasing after the next new shiny thing. In stark contrast to this, Stoic philosophy encourages individuals to focus on cultivating inner wealth, emphasizing the importance of inner virtue, wisdom, temperance, courage, and justice, and personal development over external things. Stoics believed in distinguishing between what is truly necessary for a good life and what is simply desired due to societal pressure or personal whims and desires. While basic needs such as food, shelter, and clothing are essential for survival, excessive materialism often stems from a pursuit of luxury, desire, and status. Again, these things aren't necessarily bad, they are simply neutral. But they can be a very tempting catalyst for bad. By recognizing this distinction and focusing on what's truly important, the Stoics believe that they could cultivate a sense of contentment and satisfaction with what they already have, without the need for excessive riches. The Stoics also teach that material possessions are transient and can be lost, taken, damaged, or fall into decay. Recognizing the impermanent nature of worldly goods, Stoics can detach themselves from the constant desire to accumulate more, and instead focus internally. They even developed a way of thinking that suggests all we ever do is borrow things from the world, and the world will ultimately take it back after some time. People die and return to the earth. Things break, get stolen, or wear away. And to the Stoics, this impermanence led them to believe that you never really own anything. At best, you're borrowing what you have from the laws of nature. And lastly, we have self-pity. The Stoics believed self-pity to be a form of self-indulgence. Instead of feeding into it, they sought instead to focus on addressing the cause of the pity, the judgments they have of themselves that give rise to it, and then accepting responsibility for working on the root cause of the problem, rather than staying in the emotion. Epictetus once said, "A man asked me to write to Rome on his behalf, who, as most people thought, had met with misfortune. For having been wealthy and distinguished, he had afterwards lost all, and was living here. So I wrote about him in a humble style. He, however, on reading the letter returned it to me, with the words, 'I asked for your help, not for your pity. No evil has happened unto me.'" In the face of adversity or personal setback, it is all too common for individuals to fall into the trap of self-pity, focusing on their own suffering and lamenting their misfortune. However, Stoic philosophy encourages us to take a different approach, emphasizing resilience, rationality, and personal growth in the face of hardship. They believe that everything in the universe, including human experiences and emotions, unfold according to the laws of nature, the logos we spoke about earlier. And by accepting this fundamental principle, we can better understand that adversity and setback are an inherent part of life, part of a natural order, and not unique to any one person. This therefore prevents us from falling into the mindset of the victim. We are not being targeted, we're simply living in a world in which these things can happen to anyone, and hardship in some form or another happens to everyone. The rationality of the philosophy also teaches that our emotional reactions to events are often the result of our judgments and interpretations rather than the events themselves. This view of our thoughts and beliefs can take irrational or self-pitying thoughts, challenge them, and replace them with more rational and objective alternatives. Stoic philosophy also emphasizes the importance of taking responsibility for one's own thoughts, emotions, and actions. When we acknowledge their role in shaping our experience of life, Stoics can resist the temptation to indulge in self-pity and instead focus on what they can control, such as their response to adversity and the cultivation of virtue.